Welcome to the Nobl9 product update. We have some really exciting news for you today we want to share. I'm Kip Merker. I'm the COO here at Nobl9, and I'm really excited to be here with some other folks. I got Brian Singer, who's our Chief Product Officer and co-founder at Nobl9. Say hi, Brian.
Everybody.
And then Jeremy Cooper is here, who's going to give you a demo in a little bit. And then we got a few surprises. We got a nice customer panel coming up later, and I'll introduce them in just a few minutes. But we have some customers here. They're going to chat a little bit about their SLO journey. So I want to get into it. Here we go. So in today's world, as software engineers and running a digital business, this is kind of what customer experience looks like for us. You know, we're all on Zoom. We're trying to do the best we can to deliver excellent customer service through the camera, right? We're no longer seeing people in person. Everything has gone digital. But this is really only half the battle, because on top of delivering excellent customer service, we also have to find efficient delivery. And if you're like me, you're not wearing suit pants right now. And part of that is because you can't see it. And actually, I think this is a useful metaphor for how we run our digital services as well. You know, we want to make sure that our software services are working in a way that really delivers for what customers expect, but at the same time are efficient to deliver. And if you've been following the concept of service level objectives and reliability engineering, you already know that this trade-off is exactly what service level objectives are all about, and that's what Nobl9 is all about. When we look at reliability, what we're talking about with reliability is really just what percentage of the time does something work versus not working. It's a spectrum. There's a spectrum of reliability from low to high, and if you go below some certain threshold, your customers are going to leave. They're going to go buy shoes from someone else. They're going to do their banking with someone else. They're going to stream their video from someone else. And if you have a service level agreement, you might even be on the hook to pay some financial penalties. So everybody kind of gets it that below a certain threshold, low reliability is bad. But as we go to the other end of the spectrum, as we try to approach this perfect experience, this perfect reliability, we reach diminishing returns and exponential cost. You know, every 9 that you add to your reliability goal is another 0 on your cloud bill. And we need a way to keep that cost under control while serving customers and delivering excellent experience. But on top of that, the cost, you know, on top of the cost, it also slows you down. And if you worked in a 4 or 5 nines environment, you know that you got to ship slower than if you were working with a lower reliability goal. So really where we want to end up is somewhere in the middle. And this whole concept of SLOs is that we want to slightly overachieve and define the goal based on what makes customers happy. And if we can find that balance point, it also relieves a lot of pressure on the team. And we go from being burnt out with on-call rotations, chasing the pager, to being productive and focusing on things that really matter and creating more meaningful work. And we call this gap the error budget. The error budget is really an essential tool for managing technical debt and operational load for engineering teams. This is the thing to take away. If you're new to the SLO concept, the service level objective concept, error budgets really are the coolest part of it and the thing that really differentiates it. Because what it creates for you is a feedback loop. And the idea is that you take some piece of data about your service that indicates what the service is doing. You add a goal to it called a SLO. The service level agreement adds a consequence to it, or else. The error budget inverts the goal. And you go from saying, well, how reliable can I make the service to how unreliable can it be and still serve our customers? If you end up with excess error budget, that means you can ship faster. And this is kind of surprising, especially if you're a PM, that the reliability engineering, the outcome we want is to actually ship faster and take more risks. If we're not meeting our goals, meaning our service is not reliable enough, then we should shift our focus onto reliability. We should pay down technical debt and make improvements. And on top of that, if we're not meeting our reliability goals and no one's complaining, it means that maybe our goals are too high. And that means we can adjust our goals to be lower and create this loop. And this is all about finding that perfect balance between excellent customer experience and efficient delivery. So that's really the concept that we want to talk about today. And I'm happy to hand it over to Brian, and he's going to share some exciting news with you.
Thanks, Kit. So we're here today because we're announcing our new product. And if you want to roll forward, Kit, to the next slide, it is called Hydrogen. Hydrogen for us is the culmination of the years of work that we have put into making SLOs accessible to really any size company. And we're really excited to bring it to everyone here today. We've taken a lot of the things that we've built from an enterprise platform perspective, and we have basically packaged them and made them really easy to get to. And so first of all, anyone that wants to try hydrogen, Nobl9 hydrogen, to start managing SLOs can go to our website and get rolling with it. But really, what's most important to me is that we've learned a lot from customers that we've worked with over the last 2-3 years in terms of what you really need in an SLO platform to get started and to make it easy, and then to scale SLOs out to an entire enterprise. And I would say the number one thing that we've learned during this time is that engineers are overwhelmed. It's a very real thing with pager fatigue and dealing with tech debt that really is impacting the lives of pretty much every engineer at every organization. And you'll hear from some of the folks, on this call that have dealt with these. And if we look at the toolbox of things that we have to deal with tech debt, to deal with pager fatigue, service level objectives are really at the forefront of providing us a really reliable way to actually make the lives of the engineers, make engineering teams, SREs' lives better. And that's really what's so exciting to us in introducing hydrogen, because we're for the first time providing a way to create, manage, consume SLOs that hasn't really been available before. So if you want to roll to the next slide, Kit. When we talk about the capabilities in Nobl9 hydrogen, we really went back to basics and said, how do we not just make it possible to come up with an SLO, but actually build the full life cycle that you need to actually use these in an enterprise. So the first thing is, in Nobl9 hydrogen, you have SLOs as code. That means that SLOs are things that can be version controlled, they can be reviewed, they can be checked in. And that's really important for making SLOs a part of just the day-to-day engineering workflow. And we've done a lot of great work sort of building out some tools. And I think you'll hear as well, the SLOs as code gives us now a shared language where we can talk about goals, goals when it comes to reliability, and how we codify those things and talk about them. Once you have SLOs defined, though, you need a way to consume that data that brings the SLO to the forefront and really doesn't have a lot of noise behind it, because we all know there's so many signals that we're getting from all of our different platforms. It's hard to figure out which ones to actually look at. So at Nobl9 with hydrogen, we really went to customers and looked at, how do you actually look at SLOs and get value from them? And we boiled it down into a few signals that make it very easy to understand what's going on with your services. Obviously, looking at reliability burn down, right? How much error budget do I have left? But what's driving that, right? How can I map the actual indicator to the reliability burning down to burn rate? And then the next thing that you want to be able to do is take action on that. We all know that pager fatigue is a very real thing. I'd say the most important thing for an engineer or an SRE is to know that when there is a page happening, it is something that's impacting customers. I don't have a problem dealing with something if I know that, hey, there's an issue with this service. Maybe there's something we need to prioritize to fix in the future. SLOs are going to help us do that. But the alerting in Nobl9 hydrogen allows me to say, I know based on this SLO, based on how quickly we're consuming error budget, that there are actual customers experiencing pain right now. And then, getting back to the root cause of things that are causing pager fatigue, that are causing a lot of alerts to happen. Really it comes down to, we all know there's technical debt. In any software solution we're building, we're always accruing technical debt. It's very hard to figure out where to prioritize our time, what's actually going to be impactful for our customers and the services, and then what's actually going to impact reducing that sort of operational fatigue that we have. SLOs are the best tool that we've found to deal with this. So, getting SLOs in place, getting access to the data, getting the right alerts, and then sort of breaking that overall tech debt cycle is really what hydrogen is about. I'm going to head to the next slide.
Well, yep, here you go.
Awesome. So Nobl9's hydrogen platform gives you a really powerful way to implement SLOs. And a big part of that is supporting the data that you already have available. The most common thing I hear is, I don't have the right data for SLOs. I need to go back and I need to fix the plumbing. The reality is that in most cases, almost every organization has the data that they need to build great SLOs in the systems that they already have, and the instrumentation they already have. And it's just a matter of bringing that data in and getting the calculation right. So Nobl9 gives you connections to most of the popular sort of metric stores, data sources that are available out there today, and even some that you might not think about in terms of SLOs, like BigQuery, right? We all have transactional data that's probably getting stored to a data warehouse. So we bring that into Nobl9. We take your definitions of for indicators and objectives and alerting. We calculate error budget. We measure those SLOs, and then we make that available through alerts, through tickets in systems like Jira and ServiceNow, through Slack messages, and then we also export that data so that you can use it, you can consume it in other tools. So Nobl9 is for our customers becoming a really key part of the overall reliability stack.
Let me welcome some really great folks to the panel here. So first of all, we got Amber Alston from, I hope I said your name right, Amber, VP of Product Management at Replicated, Dalia Havens, VP of Engineering. So they actually work together, which is, I think, very cool because SLOs are really useful for that. And we're going to drill into that in just a second. And then Zac Nickens, SRE Captain at Outsystems. Welcome, Zac. To get things started here, I want to ask a question. I'll kind of direct it to both Amber and Dalia. So you guys work together and manage your feature roadmap. And I'm curious, as you decide what to work on with your engineering teams, what role does SLOs play in that process?
Yeah, I can take that. I think both Dalia and I have a lot of experience in SLOs from sort of prior companies. I'd say at Replicated, we're a little earlier in sort of our adoption journey of like really leveraging Nobl9's capabilities and having SLO be big, decision factor. So to date, we traditionally kind of honored sort of a 50-50 type of ratio rule where we generally find that it's most sustainable week to week to honor sort of a ratio of 50% features, 50% sort of tech debt, chores, bugs. That can include performance, stability, reliability improvements, right? So one of the things that I'm looking forward to as we continue to sort of like mature our adoption of Nobl9 and adoption of SLOs is it really helps us understand like that ratio balance. And right now it's sort of an active negotiation between product and engineering of, okay, we need to go heavier on that ratio on features this week due to customer commitments, or we need to go heavier on reliability, stability. And SLOs really help us quantify that decision and help us make us feel like we're making the right decision as we think about sort of rebalancing that feature versus sort of chore and bug fix technical debt type of ratio.
Dalia, what's your take on it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Amber. I mean, I love our partnership because to me, one of the successful things about engineering and product working really well together is that recognition that ultimately we're working toward the same goal. We're building a great product. It's a product used by many, many millions of users. Having bugs is the state of things. Having reliability issues are things that we need to deal with. So having visibility into how to balance our investment in a way that drives impact is something I look for. So a lot of what our team culture is built on and gravitates to is empowering our teams. I'm looking forward to continuing with adoption of Nobl9 and the visibility of our SLOs and defining our error budgets, because that information is not for me and Amber to make decisions. It's for the team to prioritize what work is ahead of them, what's getting in their way. That I don't want them to get paged in the middle of the night. So if we can get through that, that means they unlock productivity in other ways. And that's ultimately the gain from adopting a framework like the 50-50, or being very intentional that both product and engineering care about those two buckets, even if they are prioritized sort of in separate categories at times.
Yeah, it helps bring I was just going to say, it helps bring objectiveness to the fact that we are working on the right things, and then gives that visibility sort of up the stack of the organization, so that the whole organization has the confidence that we're focusing our efforts on the most important things at a given time.
Makes sense. Hey, Zac, so I know you're doing a lot of recruiting right now, tons of engineers and SREs. Has technical debt played a role in how you recruit engineers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it plays a central role to our engineering culture, and engineering culture is one of the things that is very attractive to, to potential hires for Outsystems. We don't have the name recognition that, Google and Netflix have. But one thing that we do have is we have an exceptional engineering culture, and that fundamentally is built around, we manage our technical debt. And most importantly, we're honest with ourselves about our technical debt, right? Because if we're not honest with ourselves, we're never going to win we're never fighting from a winning position. And so, using SLOs to manage our technical debt and to keep ourselves honest about how much technical debt we have, where we need to focus our effort. We want to keep our velocity high. We just want that velocity to be very focused around whether we need to push features because we're doing well in terms of reliability, or if we want to focus that velocity on paying down technical debt because it's starting to get to a point where it needs to be addressed. And so that creates a fundamental foundation of our engineering culture. And so, we sell engineering culture to potential candidates.
So I saw an interesting stat this morning, hot off the presses, that 51% of engineers are considering or have considered leaving their job over technical debt. What's your reaction to that?
I have been one of those engineers in the past, and so my team is probably sick of me sounding like a broken record of talking about, I want people to be happy. I want people to have, are we going to have frustrating days? Of course. But I want my, engineers that are on my team and across the organization to be happy and fulfilled in the work that they're doing. Because if people are happy, we're going to get the best out of people. It helps in retaining that talent and recruiting new talent. And I think being honest with ourselves about where our technical debt is and what we need to focus our work on. And so, the earlier comment of like empowering individual engineers and teams of engineers to say, hey, let's go and focus here because we have a metric that tells us we need to focus there. That's really powerful in creating empowered teams, and empowered engineers are generally happy engineers.
So coming to looking at this from the PM point of view, Amber, you're the PM here. And I know you have a, reliability engineering background and everything, but putting on your PM hat, how do you think about setting, or how involved are you in actually setting the SLOs on a service? I think of, non-functional requirements and delegating that to engineers. How do you think about that, and how do you get involved in the sort of setting of the SLOs?
Yeah, sure. I think product is a critical partner in sort of the creation of what those SLOs are going to be. I mean, if you think about what an SLO is really supposed to be measuring, it's supposed to be specific high value user workflows, right? You can't identify high value user workflows in isolation from the product manager who owns the product experience at the end of the day, right? And the promise of the product value. So in that case, I strongly encourage product managers to be equal strong partners in sort of the definition of those SLOs, paying attention to those SLOs. At the end of the day, if you've defined your SLOs right, those should be like the actual guarantee that you are delivering the promise of your customer experience, right? What is it going to take to keep my customer happy? Like, is the product delivering the value, the service that it's supposed to be? Is it acceptably performant, right? Because I could have an API that, yeah, technically it does what it's supposed to, but it doesn't return in like the 5 seconds or less that an end user requires it to, right? My user isn't happy. This is the kind of thing where if you've defined an SLO and you're measuring these high value user workflows, for PM, SLO is a guarantee, basically an objective guarantee that I am delivering the user experience promise right now. And it gives me the confidence to be able to introduce like experimental features, right? So we kind of talked about how sometimes Having a bigger error budget lets you experiment with, that includes experimentation on the PM side, right? I might have more freedom than to introduce like something that's maybe a little bit more experimental, a little bit more risky, because I have a little bit of error budget to play with, right? So it's a great tool on the product side as well.
Yeah. And Dalia, as the engineering manager, hearing that, I hear the word guarantee a few times in there. So I always worry, how much you're guaranteeing. But, when you're convincing the product managers or, the business stakeholders or working with your team to do the same thing, what role do you see SLOs playing in that? And do you maybe even have some examples of that? Or can you say how things, maybe give us a picture of the before and after, right? What were things like before SLOs, after SLOs from kind of the, talking to your business stakeholders?
Yeah, here's what I'll share with you. Before data and visibility into the state of things, it becomes a gut feel and sort of a many hours of inefficient conversations around where we need to focus, what's getting in the way. I've been in the many conversation if engineering is too slow, you need to ship faster, more, ask them to work more hours. At the end of the day, that's really not the impact. It doesn't nail down, am I working on the right things? Am I addressing what's slowing us down? So a team that's constantly trying to push uphill against some of these reliability issues, against some of these tech debt issues, will continue to deliver in less optimal way. It risks everything that they put moving forward. So when you think about it, I've been sort of researching this a bit for something that I'm working on in the future. But when you think about the theory of constraints, continuing to shove more work through a very tight and backlogged channel is not going to lead to results. It's going to lead to frustration. It's going to lead to a suboptimal experience for the product. There's many things, and Amber touched perfectly on why product needs to be a very great partner on this. So to me, to answer your question, Kit, it's about visibility. It's about bringing data to the conversation. It's about being objective. It's about recognizing that there is a lot of complexity and many things that we need to prioritize. Having that information means that we make much better decision. We do not need to make, a suboptimal decision to move forward just based on gut feel. We can really truly look at the data and the tools that we have to navigate what's going to drive the most impact for our team, our company, our bottom line.
Makes sense. And you talked about conversations, and I think the antithesis of conversations is code. You know what I mean? So Zac, I know you're a big proponent of slows as code. Maybe you can share a little bit about how you're using slows as code at Outsystems. Get into that a little bit.
Yeah, Amber made a comment about product, right? It's critical for product to be an exceptionally strong partnership as we do this. And so one of the things that I've done is, we use slows as code, and then I want to boil that down to even a more fundamental piece and say to folks from product or any other part of the organization, come to us with 3 or 4 pieces of metadata and a query that you think is meaningful to whatever you're trying to do. Show up with that, and then we've built an automation system in our CI that will then hydrate a slow template using those just handful of pieces of information, create a slow as code, run that through some tests, make sure it's valid, apply that into a lower environment, check it out, and then we have a team that will then help tune that. So in our Outsystems, we have a very homogeneous platform that we deliver to customers, and then we have thousands of customers using that platform. And so as we roll out one SLO, if it works and it's valuable, it's probably going to be valuable to thousands of customers. And so this is a way for us to democratize creating slows and then roll them out once, and then roll them out 1,000 times or 5,000 times, and really focus on what does the business want to get out of this slow, and turn it into a business conversation, and then have the machines do it on the back end to be able to roll it out, to 1,000 customer environments or 2,000 customer environments. And from a selfish point of view, it prevents the SREs or whoever's in charge of rolling out those slows from having to go click and do things, 2,500 times. We can do it once, make sure that it's valid, tune it to make sure that it meets product expectations and customer expectations, and then roll it out wide.
Got it. Hey, I want to take a question from the audience, actually. So Sal, nice to see you, Sal. She's one of our SlowConf speakers. Do you have any KPIs or SLOs that are strong indicators of a healthy team work-life balance? For example, when we started to ask engineers to respond to internal PRs in less than 48 hours, our pager team started to report the highest quality work-life balance we'd seen in 2 years. I don't know if anyone wants to take that. Dalia, any thoughts on that one?
I was just trying to read the question. So my understanding, Sal, from your question is that you sort of increase the time to respond, which allowed the team to take some time to probably triage it, to come up with much like a more calm reaction. I don't necessarily have a recommendation within the definition. It's going to depend on what is the timing to respond. But yes, I mean, a lot of our conversation, what I love about this panel is that we're touching on the quality of life for our engineers. So making sure to account for, are we providing enough time for this person to respond in the best state possible to address the issue that they need to take care of? A lot of times what I found is, in addition to like this practice of building your SLOs and these definitions, you start to recognize, what do I need to respond? Can I mitigate the issue and then debug it further when I'm in a much better state to react to it? And oftentimes that leads to much better results, because you're not trying to triage and address a fire in the middle of the night when you're not quite as supported or in the best state. Hopefully that touches on some of what you were looking for, Sal.
That's great. So I want to ask a question. Actually, all three of you. I'll go Zac, Dalia, and then Amber. What advice do you have for people who are just getting started with SLOs, or maybe haven't started on the journey yet? So Zac, you first. What's your advice?
Just do it. Just start. Right? You shouldn't, in getting started with an SLO, with SLOs, you should take the same mentality that, I think successful orgs have in working with SLOs, is forget about perfection. The first time you try to adopt SLOs, it's not going to be perfect. And, just erase that from your mind and just get started and just get into it, and then iterate and tune as you go. And like for Outsystems, we looked at it, and to build this functionality, right, it would have taken us at least 18 months of engineering time. So that's the cost of engineers to build the system, the cost of spending that time working on building a solution instead of working on something else. And so it would easily have cost us, $2 million or more in total cost. And, not to, be overly focused on dollar values here, but this is not necessarily going to bring money in the door for us. It's going to help us do that better, but it's not going to bring money in the door. So I would rather spend my engineering time and my engineering money and budget on things that are going to make our platform better and bring money in the door for the organization. And so it makes sense for us to buy something off the shelf that fits our needs and fits our matrix feature, and just get started with it, and know that it's not going to be perfect the first 5 SLOs we roll out, the first 50, the first 100, the first 5,000. They're not going to be perfect. We're going to have to tune them. And the fastest way to get to that tune point is to just start.
Amber, what are your thoughts? What's your advice?
Yeah, I would say, one of the biggest challenges I've seen in organizations that are getting started with it is really understanding what an SLO is meant to measure. So like a lot of times you get in a team and they'll start throwing out like KPIs and traditional sort of metrics-based monitoring. And so really kind of, again, having a PM, engineering, basically all your stakeholders as equal partners, and really identifying what are those key user workflows. Like, what if it didn't work, would somebody stop using your product, right? What needs to work, what needs to be performant to keep your customers happy? Identify those and really kind of focus on those. So make sure that you are focusing on those high value user workflows, being kind of lost in sort of the traditional monitoring of paying attention to like hundreds of KPIs. Really think about it in terms of user workflows.
Great idea. And Dalia, last word from you. What's your advice on adopting SLOs and getting started?
Yeah, I agree with Zac and Amber. Great points. Get started. Don't wait for it. I've been on teams where this was a 9-month project, and I think we got 2 definitions. It seems daunting, but just get started. You'll build up the muscle and the practice. Really, my advice here is include your product partner. Do not, as an engineering leader, don't you don't need to do this in isolation. Remember that this is a tool for the team to make the best decision, not for us to hide the data. So the ability to successfully adopt a tool is going to require some cultural changes. It's going to require some adoption, but that really is how you leverage a new framework, a new tool to get to a much better practice or a much better behavior on the other side. So hopefully that helps
Perfect.
you, but yes, get started.
Get started. Thank you so much. So it's perfect segue because now we're going to actually see how easy it is to get started. And I know that Jeremy had a little challenge with his Zoom, so he's here now. But before Jeremy goes, everybody, please give it up for our panel. They did an amazing job. Thank you so much. All right. Jeremy, take it away, my man.
All right. Thank you. Glad to be here. Sorry I'm not able to show my face today. I was having a technical issue there, but I'm excited to walk you guys through Hydrogen so you can see how easy it is to get set up, as she mentioned, with SLOs. When you first set up your Hydrogen account, you're greeted by a welcome page that guides you through the things that you need to do to get your SLOs set up and running. You probably can assume that the first thing you need to do is get your data into Nobl9. So to do that, you come over to the integrations page and you would click on this plus, and then you're able to see all of the data sources that we currently have where you can ingest data via API into Nobl9. This list is continually growing. And as you can see right now, it's a ton of different ways and different types of data that you can bring in. For this demo, I'll be using some Datadog data. And just to show you, you click on it, and then you can choose whether you want to do a direct connection or an agent correction. There are two ways of getting the data into Nobl9. With the agent connection, you're actually running a local containerized agent in your environment. And with the direct connection, you're actually allowing us to run the agent for you. So let's say you don't have access to an environment to run an agent, simply use the direct connection. You can put your keys in there and you're able to connect to Nobl9. It's very easy to get up and running. I want to show you one that actually has an agent connection. For Prometheus, you typically always run an agent. And when you do an agent connection, then you can see here that we give you the YAML and we also give you the Docker runtime. So you can take that and just spin up an agent in your local environment. So it's really easy and quick to get running. Now, the fun part is creating your first SLO. We group SLOs in Nobl9 by projects and services. So if you don't have a service yet, then you're going to need to create one so that you can create your first SLO. So you just click on going to services, and we will add a service here. We'll put it in the default project, and we'll just call this home page because we're going to set up an SLO in regards to a home page. And we'll just assign this to Team Blue. We actually use labels in Nobl9 to help you organize things. So we've added this service, and now we will go back and we will create our first SLO. We'll choose the homepage service. We'll choose the Datadog data source. And now we need a query. We support both threshold metrics and ratio metrics. And in this case, we're going to do as a threshold metric. So in Datadog, in my Datadog notepad, I have an SLI query here. It's looking at response time. So it's going to be a latency SLO. And I can just simply copy that query over into Nobl9. Next, we define a time window. We support rolling and calendar aligned. For setting things up for testing, I typically use a 1-hour time window just to get the data in there quickly and allow it to calculate much faster. But in the real world, you'll probably set it to 28 days. The next thing you do is you choose how many nines you want, your target for reliability, give it an experience name, and then choose a threshold. Let's give this SLO a name. We'll call it homepage latency. Oops. And we could assign an alert policy to it. We have alerting, there are webhook alerts. And if we want to, we can actually link back to Datadog. So you can link to anything that you want to, but in this case, we can actually create the SLO and link it to our data source so you could dig deeper if you wanted to. Click Create SLO, and now we've actually created our first SLO. Now, it's great to be able to do things in the UI, but we like to meet our users where they are. So we allow you to do things from command line as well. We have a binary named slowcutl, and it's very similar to kubectl. So what you could do is via slowcutl, I can actually go slow cuddle, get SLOs. I'm going to pipe this to a file, hydro.yaml. And now we pull down the YAML file, looks very similar to Kubernetes, declarative-based YAML, that contains this SLO that we were working with. Now, if I wanted to change this SLO, I can. I can also add a new SLO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this line right here, and I will go back to Datadog and get a second query to grab data coming from another location. Let's say we were going to expand into the EU. So we'll grab some data from the EU, and we'll come back, and we can simply paste that query in here, and we'll give it a new name. So we'll call this one EU. And we will save this file. And then we can actually do a slow cuddle, apply-f to the Hydro YAML, and push this up to Nobl9. So just like that, we've actually created an SLO using SLOs as code. Now, another way to do it is in GitHub. You could actually put a repo together, and in your repo, you can have these SLOs as code. You could check them in, do pull requests, and then push them up to Nobl9. And that way you have control over them. So right now you can see we have our homepage latency for the EU, and we're just waiting for that data to come in. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to hop over to alerts. I want to show you the alerting in Nobl9 because no one wants to have to watch the screen all the time. You can come over to alerts and you can see that we have a couple different types of ways of letting you know about the status of your SLOs. The first looks at when the error budget is exhausted. You could set days, hours, how long it's been trending for. The second is the remaining error budget. I really like that one because I feel that it brings teams together. You're talking about how much budget is remaining. This is what you need to use to make decisions. And you're talking about it in terms of SLO and user experience. And it helps you find out, okay, is this issue something, has the technical debt risen to the point where it's impacting us or will impact us, and how do we want to address that? The last one looks at the burn rate. This is typically when you're looking at an actual real-time problem. And again, it's looking for a trend, and you are measuring at what burn rate it has been ticking for. The alerts that we use are webhooks. And so I do want to show you the webhook integrations really quickly. Oops, I have to click here. There are a variety of ways that you can be alerted to something going on. You can send yourself an email, Slack. Once you have it formalized, you can use PagerDuty. But the greatest one to me is the webhook. And with the webhook, you can actually trigger automation so that you prevent the further burning of your error budget. It's fully customizable. You can add headers. You can customize the JSON, and you can actually send it to anything that supports a webhook. So from my point of view, it's a great tool for managing your environment, being proactive, and looking out for things that are actually impacting users, that technical debt. Right here, I want to show you, this is what it looks like. You would get the alert in Slack. You can set it up in Slack. You could just send it to yourself or a channel that only you and one or other people are in. And then once you formalize it and you actually want to be able to take more action on it or have people respond, you can create a Jira alert. And so now you can actually notify people, hey, there's technical debt impact, and you could go ahead and assign this to somebody. So you can really bring teams together, bring people together, and be proactive, and you can get more context on these technical debts that you have, because technical debt exists everywhere. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but you need the context of how it's impacting the most important people, which are your users, so that you know how to manage this technical debt. Going back into Nobl9 here, we have brought in some data, and now you can see we're displaying it to you in a very easy to understand format. the reliability burn down, the error budget remaining, and the burn rate. So it looks like overall latency is okay, but in the EU, there is a problem. And you can click on that and you're taken to the details page where you can see the SLI, the reliability burn down, and the error budget burn rate. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Kit so that he can further talk about Nobl9 and the way that it can be used.
Awesome job, Jeremy. Thank you so much. Feel free to sign up, give it a shot. You don't have to talk to sales. You don't need a credit card. And as Jeremy just showed you, it's incredibly easy to get started with data you already have. And of course, if you do need any help, we're here to help anytime. So with that, I want to thank everybody for your attention and for the panel and Brian and Jeremy and the whole thing. And let's slow.